All right, welcome to episode 2 of the relationship comeback. For the second episode, but the first guest, we had to bring on a banger, the one and only Janessa Houston. Round of applause. We'll edit that in. I don't know if we can even do that. How are you doing today? How's your Sunday been so far?
It's been good. Just went to church and praising the Lord today.
Praising the Lord, going to church. Doesn't get better than that. Uh, Real quick, I want to do a quick introduction to let the people know the type of person we have on today. Um, if I tell any false stories or false facts, please change them, and then feel free to add anything that you think would be important for people to know about you. Janessa and I have known each other for probably about 5 years now. We were in the same institute class, and at the same time as being in that institute class, we're also in the pre-service program to get hired to teach seminary. We both ended up getting hired to teach seminary and have been basically coworkers, just somehow the luck of the draw, been on the same faculty for basically like 3.5 out of the 4.5 years we've been teaching. So we've been around each other for a long time. Maybe I'll share your story first, and then you can mine will be funny, but mine will be serious. Yours should probably be a funny one because I don't know if I have a serious one. But one of my like
Okay.
earliest memories of Janessa that kind of helped me understand the type of person that she was. I don't, and this wasn't the very first memory I had, but I remember when her dad was sick and there's a lot of stuff going on. It was around Christmas time. I don't remember exactly what had happened, but there has been some bad news with it. And this was even before we were like super close friends. We were just kind of still coworkers or institute friends at that point. But I remember like I don't even I think they'd sent out a text just like, hey, pray for Sister Houston, whatever she's going through. And then I walk in and then you were at work and you were like, I don't really want to be here today, but we're just gonna go and read the Book of Mormon with my students. And I was like, man, if I was in those shoes, I would have been in my bed, not even there. And so I just remember from that moment always just being very impressed with not only your commitment to your students, but just your commitment to push through hard things. Like your ability to push through hard things is so much greater than mine. I don't know how you do it. And so that has always been a fun, not a fun experience, but an inspiring one for me. So I just wanted the audience to know the type of, not only does she have lots of great dating experience, but
Oh
she's
dear.
walks the walk. So
That's so kind. I do not remember that.
you don't remember
That's
like you were
crazy.
like, I didn't have a lesson planned or anything, but I just came in and we just read the Book of Mormon for the class or whatever. You don't remember that?
No, but I need to use that more because that's a good idea. I don't remember that, but that's really cool memory. That's awesome.
Probably has some like trauma, like get all these memories out of here. But I remember that and I
Yeah.
was very impressed. So
Well, that's so kind. Thank you.
do you have any initial funny, and I can edit these out depending on if this is appropriate or not. Any initial like this is who Carter is. Okay, good to know.
Wow, there's so many. Um, well, my first memory of Carter is that we were in an institute class at a church building. One of my first memories. It was a church building, and the Rainiers, not the Rainiersons, it was Rollins. The Rollins were teaching the class. Do you remember that class, the
I
Bob
thought it was the
Moses class that we took?
Rainiersons.
Or was it the Rainiersons? Anyway, it started with an R. We're in this class, and I remember you looking like a baby because you were a child 5 years ago. Um, but I remember you were sitting across from me. I don't know, I don't remember what the heck you said, but I do recall being very impressed with the way your mind worked with the gospel, which is pretty fun. That you were just like locked in. I was like, oh, this kid has it going on. And that your leg is always bouncing
It's
since that day, you
bouncing
know?
right now.
That's just classic Carter. Um,
Classic
but
Carter.
other funny ones is that just that you guys should know that Carter likes to dance. He wouldn't say that, but recently he's gotten into dancing and creating his own dance moves and trying to name them.
Yes.
which is awesome. So
Stay
that's
tuned.
been fun.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Maybe see one. I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably like sitting there in that institute class, like this guy was probably an AP with the way he's talking. It's so impressive.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Right.
But there you go. That's cool. Well, as y'all know, kind of the purpose of this podcast is to, at least for me, being able to hear similar podcasts, or even just when me and my friends are talking, or me and my parents, being able to have like healthy discussions surrounding dating, to me has been very healing. And I want to continue to provide opportunities for others to be involved in that conversation, along with just continuing to learn for myself, because this is a difficult stage of life, kind of this transitionary stage from living with your parents or serving a mission and going on your own and being like, I'm trying to start my own life and things aren't working out. And so trying to just create or help other people find some tools to be able to make this just a little bit easier. And I know Janessa has some great insights. And so I hope that this will be an enlightening, inspirational, revelatory, we want to call it, experience. But at the very least, I hope that it creates a space where some of you might feel heard, some of you might feel seen, receive some guidance on, how to better do things. But we kind of wanted to start today by talking about, at least from Janessa's perspective, what's kind of the current state of dating. Maybe start with what you feel like it is for girls, and then from a girl's perspective, what do you feel like the current state of dating is for guys? So we'll start with the girl. What is it like as a girl in the current state of dating? The difficulties, good things, bad things. What is it like? Give us some insights.
Yeah. I was asking my roommates about this too. And just to preface, give a censor, not a censorship, but I don't know, a preface. I am in my late 20s, so my experience is going to be different than maybe someone who's younger than this. But the current state of dating is comical. It's comical. It's very frustrating. It can be very frustrating. It's not always. It can be very frustrating. Um, my initial thought is that technology has ruined dating. I think that the dating apps have ruined what dating is, and I don't think that courting exists anymore. And I wish that it did. And I can talk more about that in a second. But
Define
for a
courting,
girl,
like what do you mean by that, of courting?
yeah. So dating is just going on dates.
Mhm.
Courting is I'm dating you and we're dating to marry. It's a very intentional relationship way of dating, and like there's a lot more effort and intentionality. I don't think that that happens nearly as much. It's just like, oh, we're conveniently together. Let's conveniently get married. I don't know if that makes any sense.
So
But
you would say there's less intentionality in, at least from your perspective, behind dating compared to, 10, 20 years ago.
for sure. Yeah.
How does that impact your thoughts on dating, that kind of shift from intentional dating, dating to marry, whatever, to I'm just going to swipe and go on dates, or I'm just going to go on dates because it's convenient? What is that kind of perspective like as a girl?
Well, honestly, some girls they go on dates for a free
They
dinner.
thrive in it.
They're like, oh, free dinner, sick, even if they're not interested in the dude, but also I don't know. I think as a girl, s- the s- well, I think on both sides, I think online dating has become social media.
Hmm.
And a lot of people use it for social media or like to like see how many people have liked you and like it makes you feel good versus actually using it to talk to people and get out on a date or get to know people. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
I haven't been on the dating apps in, gosh, almost 6 months now, which is refreshing. I wasn't on it for a long time too, but I just swore them off. I was like, it's just not it for me. I don't know. As a girl, you're just basically on there. It just feels shallow. I feel
Hmm.
mean, but also I have to be attracted to the guy. But I just don't feel like guys ask girls out on dates anymore either.
So
There are a few
from
gentlemen who actually like, hey, I want to take you on a date. That won't happen. very often,
So
at
from a
least
girl,
from my perspective.
right? From a girl's perspective, why do you think guys aren't doing that? Just because I agree with you. Like I don't remember the last time I asked a girl out in person. It's always adding them on Instagram or on the apps or a referral. And I'm talking like a stupid missionary. Like that's the only way to call it a referral. And you just text them or call them or whatever. Like it's scary to go up and talk to them in person. So I'd be curious from your perspective, why do you think guys just don't do that?
Well, I think the feminist movement that we had within the last 5 years really has ruined it for dudes. And then also, unfortunately, dudes are seen as a predator a lot of the time. And I think that is misconstrued. I do think it's true in some cases, but it's misconstrued. And so boys are cautious now because everyone's like, I'm a woman and I don't need a man, or they're like, a man tried to touch me, I'm gonna file a lawsuit. And those are both very extreme
Mhm.
cases. But also, I know a lot of girls who they'll say no to dates because they don't find the guy initially attractive at all, or they're just like, I don't know who you are. Why would I go on a date with you? And I'm over here like, dating is literally getting to know people. Um, but I think dudes don't ask because it's hard to get rejected that much. And secondly, there's a lot of girls who just say no.
Mhm.
So that's discouraging. There's this feminist movement kind of going on. And maybe also, this is going to sound harsh, but maybe they just don't have the balls to ask a girl on a date.
That's
I
probably
don't know.
that's probably part of it.
There's going to be some who are like, I don't know, I'm too nervous or whatever. Or I just, which again is to each their own. But
Yeah. Well, like you go for it's like easy versus hard. Like it's easy to swipe and ask somebody on a date. It's easy to
right.
add somebody on Instagram because you can limit the embarrassment. But like if you go up and you ask somebody out in person, it's either yes or no. There's no like ghosting, there's no, playing around. It's either that you're gonna get a yes or a no. And like you're saying, a lot of
And
times
when
it
you say
might
it like
just
that,
be a
that
no.
sounds more simple. Why not avoid all the ghosting and the confusion? Just ask me in person.
It's a good point. And we don't even
Does
see
that make sense?
meet people in person though.
That's another point that I was going to say about modern dating. There's no third place is the wrong way to say it, but like there's no, I mean, we have as LDS people, we have like FHE, family home evening, we have, activities that they put together, but a lot of the time the people I'm trying to meet aren't at those activities. And there's not like a middle ground because I'm not in college anymore, or I'm not going to classes, or I'm not playing sports anymore as actively as I was, you know?
Mhm.
Do you find that
Yeah,
with
you
like,
go like Janessa and I teach high school, and like I look at these kids, I'm like, you guys are so lucky right now to have such a huge social group. Just not even just for dating. Like obviously in high school you're not looking to get married, but like just the amount of friends and like you're just surrounded by kids your age literally for like 7 hours a day. Like the
yeah.
older YSA group we would kill for that to just be like surrounded by different people every day to be able to do that. Because yeah, it's true. Like some of us work remote jobs, some of us are with high schoolers all day teaching. That's what we're doing. And
Wow.
and
Yep.
so then our opportunities are limited to an hour family home evening, a once a week hangout. Like it's just very limited in um your exposure to that. And then, and again, maybe I would ask your thoughts on this or just to even just expound on it. But then when you have those moments, they're so high pressured when someone new walks in or when someone cute walks in, and then you're just like, how in the world am I supposed to put on my best self when I realize that this might be an opportunity that comes around once every 2 months? I gotta turn up and and then you just say something stupid and then it's over.
And I think that the pressure is there because we all rely on the easy technology now. Like even, I have family and friends who they've met their spouse or their significant other online, and that's fine. But that was the only way they were meeting people. And because that's the only avenue that people meet people, did I say that right? People meet people.
Mhm.
I feel like has made in-person things feel really anxious because the behind the screen is so comfortable. So again, I think technology has altered the way we date, the way we interact, because it's easier. So in a social setting, I don't know, like even at church or wherever you're having a social setting. I don't know, we're usually at like my house when I hang out
Hmm.
with friends. So, but just being like, well, I don't necessarily have to ask this person out, but I want to get to know them and talk to them and help them feel comfortable. That's what I try and do. Just be like, hey, what's your name? Like, I'm so and so. It's good to meet you. And then the next week, make another touch and be like, okay. I don't literally mean a physical touch. Like, that's sure if you want to, but like, just another touch, like, hey, Matt, how was your week? Like, what's going on? Or, hey, John, what's this? What's that? You know? And then eventually being like, hey, do you want to go out sometime? You know?
Yeah.
Again, though, there's probably people who are like, but if I don't ask her initially, then like, it's going to be the end all.
You're gonna get stuck in the friend zone.
Yeah.
Well, I
Which,
think like I mean you've been on the receiving end of this where like when I'm texting somebody or sending a message, it takes me like 30 minutes to craft up, a text for goodness sake to be able to know what to say, which is
yeah.
which is fine. You can be a little bit more intentional about what you're saying, but in a moment where I gotta talk to this person, I gotta ask them out, whatever, you don't have that time anymore. And especially like you're saying, if the only place you're meeting people is online, the only interaction you're having is texting or Snapchatting, like those skills are just so bad. And so then it's like, well, now I've just kind of shot myself in the foot because the only practice I'm having with this is through texting. And then when a moment comes up in person, you're just like, shoot. I'd be curious what have you done to try and limit that reliance on the apps or social media and stuff to try and keep up those skills of being able to talk to people in person and things like that, because that is something you do a great job at. You always are just introducing yourself to people and stuff.
Well, gratefully, I have jobs and callings that have always forced me to do so. And by nature, I'm a pretty outgoing person, which I know is not the case for everyone. I feel very blessed in that way when it comes to a dating perspective. But when it comes to like communicating in a dating scene via technology, and let me know if I'm ever getting off like the question here, but I this is months ago, was trying to talk to a guy and he was like, hey, what's your snap? And I'm like, we're so old for Snapchat, first of all. Like, as far as like a dating realm, like Snapchat should die. Um, but
Only thing Snapchat is
I
good
was like, why do
for
you want
is
my,
for private taste test stories.
yeah, yeah, for demi taste tests,
Yes.
yes. Um, but I was like, why didn't my Snapchat? He's excited because I want to see your pretty face. And I was like, well, then take me on a date.
Oh.
I was like, call me, FaceTime me. I was like, take me on a date then if you want to see my face.
Hmm.
This isn't free real estate to just look at all the time. You know, I don't know. Just like I'm not just a pretty house to walk by or see, and like I want to be interacted with. I want to be treated well. Not that Snapchat is always a negative thing, but like I'll be like, you want to see me? Let's go on a date then. Or you want to see me? We're gonna be doing a movie night at my house. You should come. Like I'll try and plan something. Uh, for me personally, it is a red flag when someone has to be texting you all the time and it makes them anxious when you don't respond or like makes them like you hate me because you're not responding. I'm like, bro, I have a life. I have a full-time job. I'm not on my phone all the time. I'll make touch-ins or like check-ins if I'm actually dating a person,
Hmm.
but like I'd rather get home later and tell you about it or call you later and tell you about it just because I'd rather have your natural reaction and my natural reaction.
Instead of the 30-minute crafting the
Yeah,
perfect
and being
text,
like, oh, like I should have
texting all
said
your
this or that,
friends.
which
Which
yeah,
should
which
I
I know
use?
sometimes is the case and we use texting and it's fine, but if you want to see my face, take me on a date or
Mhm.
invite me to something.
I think, and then we can maybe move into our next point to like, all right, how do we start to create a healthier environment where, I mean, we could spend 2 hours on like you said, the comical state of dating at this point in time, but trying to move into how do we improve it. I think one thing that's hard is like you're saying, for me, I do much better on the phone. I try and call on my dates very early on. Like I don't want to be texting. 'Cause I'm a very anxiously attached person, trying to move away from that. And so texting, like you text them and they don't respond for 18 hours, you're just like, what the heck? But like you're saying, I would rather be on the phone. So I'd be curious,
Yeah.
what do you think could be done to try and spend more time on the phone or FaceTime or in person, especially when it's early on in dating, like date one, date two, because sometimes it's very forward to be like, hey, can I call you or can I FaceTime you? And you're like, we haven't even met or we've only been on one date. What are your thoughts on trying potentially shifting the culture to being like, we don't even talk or text, we just call or we just FaceTime or whatever, especially early on in dating.
Yeah, what could we do? Gosh. I mean, it starts with you, like, and telling people that's what you do. Or I'll, I've told dudes before, I'm like, you want to ask me on a date? I was like, You need to call me."
You've
And
told
I'll
them that?
draw that boundary. Yeah, not every time and not
Mhm.
every dude, but every time I'll be like, hey, call me. Or I'll literally text them. I'll be like, hey, later just call me. Or like I'll call you and I'll call them and be like, hey, you wanted to talk, like, what's up? Um, but I think it starts with us individually, just being like, these are my boundaries, and like I don't want to text you all day because I'm busy, and like I want, but I do want to talk to you. So can I call you at 6? Um, and then be like, oh, I don't know, talking's crazy. I'm like, well, we have to practice somehow. If
Be
you want to
like,
be in a
if we're ever
relationship
going
with
to
me,
go on
we're
a
gonna be
date.
talking a lot. And yeah, like I'm trying to figure out if we vibe. If we don't vibe, then we don't vibe, and that's fine, and we'll move on. But if I'm trying to figure out if we vibe, so we can go on a date, and it's not death stare awkward on our first date, because everyone's had that experience where the other person doesn't say anything, and you're like, okay, I'm basically keeping the whole conversation, you know?
Yeah, carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Then you start
Yeah.
firing off
What do
weird
you think we
questions.
do? You like cheese? Do
Yes.
you?
It's like the love on the spectrum where you just start, do you like animals? Do you like whatever? Do you like and you just start firing
There
off
is a
drunk.
scene on Love on the Spectrum though that I think we could learn from
Which
because
one?
they're talking. I can't remember their names,
Oh,
but the
okay.
two they're on a date and they're talking like that, like, do you like this? Do you like that? Yes, yes, no. And the boy says, I have nothing else to say, but I'm having a good time. And so they just sat there for a little while until they found something they wanted to say. And I know that they're on
Hmm.
the spectrum, and I know it's the unusual case, but I do think that is something we can learn from. It's okay to just sit and be quiet for a sec and be like, oh, okay, I have this other question too. Or, hey, I remember you said this. Or, hey, let's just enjoy the view for a sec.
Yeah. I was
I
listening
don't know.
to,
What do you think we can do to create like healthier environments? But you also
yeah.
are going to
Well,
say something.
I was just gonna say I was listening to another dating podcast and they said if you can sit in silence with someone for 5 minutes, you should date them. Because I think that shows like a comfortability level. So if you can just even learn how to, again, not have so much pressure to be talking, and again, it's hard, especially on a first or second date, because you really are
Yeah.
trying to get to know that person. But I thought that was like kind of an interesting point. Like, could I be comfortable sitting in silence with this person? If I can, there's probably just some natural compatibility there. So I thought that was interesting. But as far as, try because to me, if my whole relationship with you is over the phone and calling, I don't have to worry about ghosting. I don't have to worry about reading in between the lines on your text and all. And obviously, you're going to text a person, to pick you up or
Right.
thanks for, coming with me, whatever. Like you're not going to call them after I mean, maybe you could. You're not going to call them after the date and say, thanks for going on a date. But maybe just say,
What
I
went
can't
well, what
text.
didn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I just saw you or whatever. But I think it's so hard to like set expectations before a first or second date so that these things can be communicated without it coming across as I'm planning too far ahead or I'm trying I don't, at least in my experience, it kind of takes the sexiness out of it for girls. If you try it, like they kind of like the spark, they kind of like the excitement, they want you to surprise them. And if you just like set all the expectations up front, it kind of takes the spark out of it. So that's one thing that I've kind of ran into. But like I would love that because it would eliminate. ghosting. It would eliminate that because we're just relying on, I'll call you, this sometime early this week and we can try and figure out another time. Or you know, I'm not a big texter, but I'd love to call you sometime this weekend and we can talk for a little bit. And I think that would do wonders for our dating world if we could do more of that instead of anxiously attached people. It's been 7 hours since he texted me. I'm freaking out. And then you're like, I don't know what the heck to do.
Yeah.
Uh, what are some of your other thoughts on maybe things we could do, maybe from either that you think girls could do? This could be your message to the females, or this could be message to guys or just people in general. But what are some of your other thoughts on what can we do to move into a more healthy state of dating to maybe limit some of the frustration, limit some of the difficulties of the current dating culture?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that one date doesn't mean you're marrying someone.
Nuh-uh.
Um, I hate that idea that like someone's like, "Oh, you went on a date with so and so? Oh my gosh, like you probably gonna marry this person." But and like and I get that especially in the culture that we live in, marriage is pushed heavily for good reasons. We believe in the family. It's very central to what we believe in. But one date, it does not mean I'm gonna marry a person, or a few dates doesn't mean I'm gonna marry a person. The point of dates is to get to know someone and see if you're compatible. And if you're not, move the freak on. And so I wish there was more of this idea of kind of, I don't want to make it sound like a business transaction, but
Mhm.
being like, hey, we're gonna sit down and have dinner and we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna try to, and we're gonna see if we, are compatible in certain ways. Basically, first date's like, do I want to see you again? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Second date is like, okay, I wanted to see you again. Let's maybe go to a next level and like, do I want to invite you to something with my friends?
Mhm.
And if you don't pass those two questions, then I move on because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. But one or two dates doesn't mean you're going to marry someone, and don't take it personally. That's the advice I would give to
Mhm.
girls and
Real
to
quick, what
boys.
what would be the application? How do you do that? Like, because they like you go on a date, it's very exciting, for some of us, depending on the season you're in, you're going on a date every couple of weeks or once a month, or like there's a lot of pressure on that one date. So how have you, and maybe you're not perfect at it, but how have you kind of tried to shift your mindset into, if I go on a date, so I'm not going to get married to this person or whatever, and kind of detach yourself a little bit from that?
How have I done that? I think something that led me to want to be that way, let's start there, if that's okay, because yeah, something that's led me to want to be that way is probably just some of the terrible experiences I've had in dating, and not all of
Mhm.
them have been terrible, but it's just led me to realize it's okay to be picky, and I'm not trying to be offensive, and I'm not trying to be mean to other people, but like there's certain musts that I have. And there's certain like I would like to have things in the person I'm trying to date. And so I just have also had people waste my time. And I don't, it sucks to be on that end of being like, I'm putting all this effort in and then you just dip, or you're like, actually, I don't really like you. This is just fun. I'm like, oh, you've wasted all my time and I could have been going on other dates.
Mhm.
And so that motivates me to be more upfront and honest. Then be like, do you want to go on a date again? I'm like, no, I don't, but thank you so much. And I don't owe them an explanation. I don't have to say anything else. I'm just like, no, I don't, but thank you so much for dinner. Like, this is great.
Yeah, I think
Because then they can move on and I can move on. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, at what point do you kind of give an explanation? 'Cause I think that's another hard part of dating, especially when you're going on lots of dates or things like that, is they'll just end or whatever. What's kind of your gauge on appropriate, like, hey, I'm not interested in you? Because that's one thing that to me, in my opinion, I would rather have someone say, I'm not interested anymore, or, I don't see that we're compatible in this way, because it allows a certain type of closure. Because a lot of the time, especially for a guy, just date after date after date. It's not really going anywhere. And you're kind of like, all right, well, what am I doing wrong? You're not really getting any feedback. So I'd be curious, what's your kind of gauge on that type of communication of maybe a healthier way to do that in our culture instead of just ghosting? I think what you're doing is great. At least you're like saying something instead of just not just being like, lose my numbers, see ya, like whatever. But I would be curious your
Yeah.
kind of gauge on when you express that versus when you don't.
There have been cases where I've been on like a first date and I didn't text after the date and they never texted me and it just dissipated. Like nothing. We never talked to each other ever again. That's fine. But if a dude texts me after the first day, like, I had a great time, I'd be like, me too. Thank you so much. Leave it at that. And if they ask, I'd love to do this again, I'd be like, I'm flattered. I'm not interested in something else or another date. Thank you so much, though. Leave it at that. If we've been on more dates, if you've been on a couple dates or you've been dating the person for a little bit, then I think to a degree there's a point of like an explanation. But also if it just turns out that you're like, I'm just not interested in you anymore. That can be the explanation. And I
Mm,
think a lot of people don't like that. Because then they're like, oh, wait, but like, why? Like, what did I do wrong? And sometimes there is a wrong thing they did, and sometimes there's not. You're just like, we just don't vibe.
right.
I just don't see us being compatible in the future. Or like, I'm not interested in your lifestyle, or I'm not interested in the same, like, the core values that you have, or I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I would be curious, what would you like a guy to say in that instance? Let's say you go on a date. We're just talking first dates. What do you think a healthy way to explain I'm not interested anymore instead of ghosting? What would you like to hear from a guy? What's appropriate?
The exact same thing. Hey, like, uh, I'm not interested in any more dates. For me, it can be very blunt.
Mhm.
Again, for me, I'm a pretty upfront person. Pretty, at least I like to be the best I can of being like, this is how it is. Okay, let's move on. I'm a very like information person. I don't need all the extra fluff, but I would love a dude to say, like me being like texting him all the time or whatever, trying to like, hey, let's do this, and he keeps saying no. There are some times where I'll just stop texting them because he's not making plans, but he'll just want to text me, but we're not doing something.
Mhm.
He'll be like, hey, I'm realizing you're not interested, so thanks, we'll see you later. But I'd love for him to be like, hey, you're cool to talk to, but I'm not interested in dating you. Have a great life. Please be nice to me when I see you in public.
Yeah.
Just like, let's just be adults about it. If you've been like on a few dates, but it's like, obviously, there's a different depth to each situation.
Yeah. Well, just like as you're talking again, this isn't anything groundbreaking, but I think when you have really bad or negative dating experiences, especially when they're hurtful, you start to date more in a way of how can I treat other people in a way that I would want to be treated, especially when going on dates. Like you're saying, I'm not like when you've had your time wasted, unless you're a psychopath, and we got some of them out here, I feel like you are very intentional about I'm not going to do that to somebody else. Like if you have a heart, like and that's happened to you, you're like I'm not going to do that to somebody else. Or if you've had these things happen, you kind of tend to be like I'm going to be the opposite in that. And so I think maybe that's a good rule of thumb of, and again, it's not we're not breaking any news here, but trying to date, in a way that you would like to be dated, and trying to be upfront, trying to be intentional, trying to be kind about people's time and feelings. And I think that would be a good place to move into. I would like your thoughts on, again, you kind of talked about how we're in a space of dating, but you're like, I would like to get more into a space of courtship. What do you think we could do to figure that out? And we're trying to be more intentional about our dating to marry and things like that. How do we get from a dating culture to a courtship culture? How do we get it back? Because we had it and we lost it.
Yeah, I think that they coexist because I think you can have dating culture where I'm like, I'm going on dates. Like someone asks me on a date and I go on a date and then we like, go on a date with this guy. Or like dating is just to get to know people. We're
Mm.
supposed to do that, you know? And you can get to know people in a social big setting too, but a one-on-one getting to know is called dating in my head. Courtship is where maybe I've been on like a date or two with someone, and I'm like, I kind of want to hone in on this person. I want to get to know them. I want to see really if we're like compatible. And I would like for them to do the same. Obviously, it takes two,
Mm.
since sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But I think something we could do to get more into that courting mindset.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put the explicit
That was
button on
close.
here.
Mindset is I don't know how many people actually date to marry.
Why do you think that
Like
is?
I'm trying to figure out like by dating you if I want to marry you. Why do I think that is?
Yeah. Why is that
Because
the case? I agree with you. I don't think there's very many people that are sitting in I guess the new 18 to 25 sacrament meeting. I don't think very many of them, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think very many of them are like, I would love to get married here soon. And if they are, their actions aren't backing it up. So that I would agree with you. So I'd ask you why is that not a priority for our generation right now?
they're just it's fun. That's a dumb way to say that, but like people are like, oh, I'm just like I have a boyfriend. It's nice to have a boyfriend.
Hmm.
Or maybe they're scared of commitment, so they're not dating to marry. Because they're like, I'm just trying to like fill out my options. I'm trying to, which I have definitely been in that phase before.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to just taste all the flavors of ice cream to decide which one's my favorite. Um, which is a fun analogy. But um, I don't know. I think maybe I don't know. Again, I think social media plays a part of like all these famous people who are single or like divorce is so prevalent always and like the family's just attacked generally. And so people are like, I'm gonna wait to get married and settle down because I want to have my fun. It feels very self-centered.
Hmm.
Like I'm gonna date for fun. I'm gonna date just for the heck of it because it's fun and it's etc. And it feels selfish, which I mean, you need to make sure you're good and you're okay.
Right.
But also like dating to marry, it takes two, and you're like, okay, do I want to build a family and a home with this person? Do I want to build a life, build a marriage with this person? It's way less selfish. So maybe they're in a selfish phase. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, I've been in that phase before, so that might be the case. And I don't know, we're all working through something different, but those are my initial thoughts. What do you think about that?
Uh, I I think like you're saying, I think everyone is just at a different stage. And so to try and time it up in a way where both people are on the same page at the same time, to me it's a freaking miracle that it happens at all. Like with how many dates I've been on in my life, you see like, oh, it's extremely difficult to me when I see someone get married or get a boyfriend or girl. I'm just like thrilled for them. I'm like, it's so hard to find someone just even on the same page of like dating, let alone compatibility, let alone you're attracted to them, let alone you have similar standard. And so like, to me, I think that's hard, is you just have you know a 20-year-old in college. She's probably not looking to seriously date to get married, and so they're just going on dates to have fun, versus someone that's 25 is probably starting to realize, all right, maybe I should lock in a little bit, start to take this more seriously, but I'm not going to decide unless it's the perfect person. And then you get into later 20s, early 30s, and you're just kind of like, this is one of my top priorities. And again, that those can fluctuate between, it's been my top priority since the moment I came home from my mission. So it fluctuates for everybody. But I think that's what's hard, is you have so many variety of importance throughout it, and you're just like praying you can line up with somebody at some point, and hopefully you're attracted to them. Hopefully you somewhat get along, and you're like just praying it happens sooner than later. But
Yeah. I have a question about something you said. You said with the 25-year-old person who's like, "Oh, I'm trying to date to marry, try and find like the perfect person." Do you believe in soulmates? I know it's like a big
Yeah,
question on episode 2 here, but like, do you believe
episode
in
2.
soulmates?
I know the doctrinal answer is no, but I have seen too many people where I'm like, there is no way you guys were not like predestined to be each other's soulmate. Like I have a mission companion. I love him. He's awesome. He's very quirky like me in the sense of sports. Like him and I, when we talk about sports,
Yeah.
it probably gives literally every girl like the ick. They're like, this is embarrassing that you guys know this much about sports or whatever. His wife is literally perfect for him. Like it is one it's like to me, and so there's just like experiences like that where I'm like, maybe there's something to it, but then again, I don't. Doctrinally, we've been told no, that that's not the case. So I would,
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm sitting on the fence. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't believe that there's soulmates. Like when just one person for me. There's been people that I've been on dates with or dated before that like we could have gotten married and we could have made
Mm,
it work. Um, I see what you're saying though. My mom and dad are that person. Like they were everyone even to, like people in my life have always told me your parents are perfect. And I am grateful to say I never saw my parents fight a day in their life. And I never saw my dad raise his voice at my mom or vice versa.
mhm,
Um, and I asked my mom, I was like, you guys appear so perfect. And I think that that did have some negative repercussions on some of my siblings and their marriages, but
right.
which they've worked through. But I was like, you guys look so perfect. She goes, oh, it was not. She says we had to work on things together, but we did it in a private way.
Mm.
She said we didn't do it publicly. They're very professionally minded, so they were very like we
Let's
present it the
schedule a
best that we
companionship
can, but
inventory.
yeah, no, really,
Yeah.
really, they basically did that, and um they would have, oh, I don't agree with this, I don't agree, but they did all that behind closed doors in a private manner and asked for help as needed. But she said those first few years we had some really tough conversations together, but we worked on it together and we decided on a common goal, and that made us perfect.
Hmm.
And so I'm when I see the perfect couples, I'm like, it's probably because they're working on common goals together. They're both trying to come to Jesus. They're both trying to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like
I don't know. I don't, yeah.
as a missionary, the companions I worked the best with, saw the most success, was because we were the most unified. It had nothing to do with our shared interests. In fact, probably the companions I had the most shared interests with, sometimes you struggle with because you focus on other things other than the work. And so then you're like, all right, well, let's just focus on this shared goal or whatever. Can I make it work with this person? One thing that I've been learning about being single is like your struggles are kind of public when you're single. Like people are like, okay, well, what's wrong with them, or what's going on in their life? Why are they not married? When you're married, people don't really think about that. They're like, oh, okay, like your mom and dad, they're married, they're perfect, whatever it might be. And I think that's one perspective that I think would create a healthier dating dynamic. And again, it's so hard because like you don't want to fight in front of your kids. You don't want to like do those things.
Yeah.
But if married couples would be more upfront about the struggles of being married, it would make it so helpful to be like, oh, okay, I don't have to search for the perfect person. I don't have to do this because you're like, oh, like this person is addicted to this, or this person is struggling with this, or this couple argues they're not even sleeping in the same, and then again, you want to keep your marriage private, but I think that I don't know. What would be your thoughts on that, on how that would help dating if married couples are maybe more open about some of the struggles about being married? Because like you said, it's not just perfect once you get married.
Yeah. How do I want to say this? Yeah, I agree with what you're saying to an extent. As far as like a parent-child relationship, I think the parents, um, we're not parents, so I really have no
Mhm.
room to talk about this, but being a child of my mom and dad who did appear very perfect in their marriage, um, not that I never saw them disagree,
Right.
but they never fought. Um, and I think I would have liked to have known earlier on that they did have hard conversations in private rooms
Hmm.
and that they had some the hard days where they're like, we disagreed on this, but we decided to do this because it felt the best out of the two options. Or but then again, I think about like me personally, I was not close with my mom in high school. We butt heads quite a bit.
Hmm.
There was no way I was going to ask her about her relationship. No, I didn't care.
Right.
So like growing up in that phase, but now in my 20s, I'm more interested, you know, but also my earlier 20s, again, I was still very closed to my mom um, and dad when it came to relationships. I think that's probably because I had two boyfriends when I shouldn't have. Not at the same time. In high school,
I was gonna say
one
reverse
boyfriend and I
polygamy.
had another one when I shouldn't have, and I kind of tried to hide that from my mom, which was my error. Because I wasn't supposed to. The rule was that I wouldn't have a steady boyfriend, but so I think I just built that in myself of not wanting to talk to my mom about dating things when I wish I would have. So maybe that would lead into the advice I'd give myself earlier is like talk to your parents about their relationship.
If you think if more people did that, what do you think would be the impact on single adults? If more parents or even just like bishopric members in the YSA wards or coworkers, whatever, if there was more openness surrounding their marriage or even just their personal struggles, what do you think the impact would be on people like you and people like me pertaining to how we date?
It's helped me personally a lot having I've had certain conversations with bishops. It's helped me a lot to see that this bishop that I hold in high regard, and I know it's not true for everyone, but this gentleman who is a leader and I really appreciate his insight. And he tells me how it was like a rough go at the beginning of his marriage, and he almost didn't marry his wife because they had a disagreement or they didn't see eye to eye on something. But they worked it out and they came through. And he's like, we just had to buckle down, and we both wanted to make it work, which is I think also key. They both
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make it work. Not one of them wanted to make it be the right one. They both wanted to work together. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's helped me a lot in how I view dating, how I date people. It's shifted uh, it's helped me shift into the dating, into trying to court people, like trying to date to marry.
Well, like just as you're talking, like in my mind, it goes from I'm looking, and again, these are important, but it would be if I'm having more open conversation, like I love the concept of the people's marriages who look perfect, they're probably working the hardest at it. So now when I'm going into dating, I'm looking at who's going to work the hardest at this. Like I'm looking for a teammate. I'm looking for someone that we can, and instead of someone that I can have fun with, someone that whatever, like it can kind of shift that balance a little bit of I'm looking for someone that's going to work freaking hard with me at this. Cause again, if people were maybe more open about it, that would be a higher priority for some people of like, is this person going to commit? Is this person willing to work hard at said relationship?
Hmm. Which, from a girl's perspective, is why a girl loves to see a man who is driven and has a career. We know he's gonna, or like working towards a career, working towards like an outcome, because they're like, he can work on stuff. That's someone I can work on something with. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Because they're like
I,
I can see his efforts in the sense of he's working hard at this, likely that will translate to other areas of his life.
yeah.
What do you think guys could look for in girls for that kind of indicator? Because again, I think guys are that a big one. That's career, that's financial, probably abs too. No, I'm just kidding. But like for guys, what could they look for in girls of those indicators of this is somebody that's like committed to work hard, or even what should be things you should stay away from in that sense of these are probably indicators that maybe they're not ready or they're not at that phase.
That's a good question. Um, I would say to avoid for girls and boys, someone who has a lot of free time. Um, because like, what are you working on?
Hmm.
And not to say that they have to be a jam-packed, super busy, can't
Right.
ever hang out person, but like, it's like, hey, I can't hang out today because I have some things I need to do. I appreciate someone who's like, we kind of have to schedule this in because I'm working on some things in my life. That's a green flag for me.
Hmm.
So if it's someone who's like, oh, I'm available whenever, all the time, I'm like, who are you blowing off? Yeah, like it's cool you're making time for me, but I'd rather someone be like, I can't today, I'm sorry, but like, can we do it a different day? Or I'm available on Thursdays and Saturdays
Hmm.
right now. I would say on both sides, like if you see a girl who's just constantly has free time and nothing to do, to me, that's like, where's she going? What is she doing?
You're not like pushing
I don't know.
yourself at that point. You're just kind of coasting a little bit, which is fine. It's fine to be in that stage, but if
Yeah,
you're
and I'm
looking
not
to
trying to
date,
downgrade that
right? Yeah.
person, but it's attractive, I think, on both sides to see someone who has goals and is working on them and is like trying to do something with themselves. I
So
don't know.
basically, what you're saying is a summer sales girl,
Um,
green flag.
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
that's to each their own.
Yeah.
I know some people like that lifestyle and some people like that kind of a personality. That's not for me generally. Watch me marry a sales bro
I
now
know.
that I said that,
The
but
universe is gonna.
I just, yeah, the universe has, you mean God?
Yeah. God, universe, they're all funny. They like to play tricks on me. But
Yeah, I just, what do you, well, I don't know, what should guys look for in a girl? If she's good with kids, I don't know. Well, if you don't want to have kids, then maybe not, but like
right.
someone who's going to mother your children. And you see that by like how she interacts with kids. Um, if she wants kids, I would say both ways. I definitely hold in high regard how much a dude can get along with kids and how much they could take care of a kid. For me, that's important at my stage in
Because
life
you don't want to be
because for
taking care
me,
of a
that's
kid
what's next.
and then another kid, aka being your husband.
And then a baby. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, I think
That's hard to
just
say from a girl's.
well, to me, it just kind of sounds like the traditional, and again, probably get some hate for it, but a lot of the traditional gender roles probably shows you're in a headspace of like, I'm I'm really looking to make this work with somebody. As it's withstood the test of time. People have been getting married since Adam and Eve. Clearly, that and it can vary depending on individual circumstances. But if you're committed to, can I provide for my family? Do I have someone to nurture the kids? Are we willing to work hard together? If you can have two people in that headspace, to me, it seems like
Yeah.
you're going to be in a pretty good spot of courting one another instead of just continuing to date.
And again, it's obviously not worked out for either of us yet, so we don't know really what we're talking about. We're trying to figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
We're trying to see what's good and what's not, but
All
I don't
right. So
know. We're learning.
before we finish up, kind of, I know you'd answered one of them, but going back to 21-year-old Janessa coming home from her mission before she's about to endure these next 5 to 10, grueling years of dating, what advice would you give yourself to either make it easier, to be more intentional about it, to maybe avoid some things? What would be, is it, I mean, you could probably answer all three of those, but at least a couple of thoughts on if you could go back and tell yourself some piece of advice or warnings or guidance before going into this crazy comical dating world. What would you tell 21-year-old Janae?
Um, that, gosh, there's a list. There's so many things that are just small and dumb, but I'm trying to think of the more significant ones that are kind of more generalized. But I saw this video a while ago and I really liked what she said, and I would totally tell myself this. Um, if I could, if I was younger, but wanting a romantic relationship and to be married is not an illness. Um, People treat it so differently than like if I didn't have friends and I was like, I just really want friends, people treat that so differently than me being like, I just really want to be married.
Hmm.
They're like, you'll get there one day, and like there's no like I don't not that there's not support, but do you see how they treat them differently?
Yeah.
And like wanting a romantic relationship is not an illness. It's not a weird thing. It's not a a, a phase that we can kind of just like, oh, like whatever. Like it's something we actually do desire, and it's a good thing. It's also as important as desiring friends. I don't know if that makes
Mhm.
any sense
Well, I would be curious.
to anyone listening, but
I would
like,
be, what kind of impact, if you knew that, how would that have
go
impacted the
ahead.
last 5 to 10 years? If you knew, okay, this is a good thing, this desire to want to get married, to start a family, what kind of impact would that have if that was deeply rooted in you for the last, few years of dating?
I think it would have increased my desire because I definitely went through that phase of like, I'm just gonna have fun and like, I mean, I'm not hoeing around, but like, I'm just like, I just wanted to have fun and I want to just meet as many people as I can, which I still do. I'm a very, very social person by nature, and I love that, and it gives me lots of energy. But I think I would have treated other people in the dating scene with a little more grace, especially when relationships end or just start. It's like, okay, cool. Like, this is now one of their friends that they have. I don't know. I think it would have increased my desire to be more gentle with people,
Mm.
um, which maybe that doesn't make sense to anyone else who's listening, but in my head, that's what comes to my mind.
Well, yeah, but I think, especially when you've been waiting a while and you're like, all right, we're going, like, like after you're home for like a year, you're like, okay, this is a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be to get married, but it will happen in a few months. When you get on year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you're like, man, this is hurting me a lot not having. I might want to suppress this desire a little bit. And like you're saying, that's going to look different for a lot of different people. Some people take that into the hoeing around phase. Some people just are
Right.
like, I'm just giving up. Some people are like, whatever. And I like that. I think that would be a very healthy way to view that. Is this, it's like this, it's the law of chastity lesson. Like these are natural desires, not something that you need
Yeah.
to suppress. And
Mm.
when you do suppress it, it's actually probably going to harm you more than help you, because at some point it's going to come up again and you're probably going to be unprepared to deal with that emotion. And then when an opportunity comes, you're going to miss out because you're like, I haven't, this isn't something I'm dealing with. This isn't something I'm processing.
Yeah. I definitely think it leads to the law of chastity a lot. I wish I would have learned the principle of the law of chastity way earlier, like understood it where I do now. I do not claim to understand it fully, but just that it's natural. We're made in God's likeness, and He's a creator, and they have, we're made in, yeah, we're just made in His image, which is really cool, and I'm grateful. Yeah. Another thing that I would want to tell myself about like advice, um, would be to talk to my parents about their relationship,
Hmm.
be it that they appear perfect or that they don't. Being like, how do you guys deal with the relationship? Like, what's it like to be in a relationship? Not necessarily married, because we're not there yet,
Hmm.
but like we need to practice those conversations while we're in this phase of singleness or in a phase of dating someone because but like what's it like? Like how do you navigate that conversation? And yeah, instead of, I mean, the internet's a good place to go for stuff like this. I mean, this podcast, for example,
Mm.
like for a little starter, but to have a person-in-person conversation with someone who's a relationship you admire and be like, what were the struggles, or like did it go perfect for you guys? Because it appears that way.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it did not. Actually, we had these bumps, and then being like, well, what did you do to get through that? And I think the reason I would give myself that advice is because I've tried the last 3+ years to morph into a phase of I'm not trying to prepare to get married, or like I'm not trying to prepare for, whoa, I'm not trying to prepare for a wedding. I'm trying to prepare for a marriage. I'm trying to prepare for, does that make sense? Like I'm
That's
trying to
so good.
prepare to be in a marriage, not for my wedding day. Wedding day is fine, but like I'm trying to prepare to be in a relationship with someone forever. What tools can I glean? What tools can I
Hmm.
practice now? And habits can I have now to take into that will benefit me, my spouse, my kids, my home? Like I'm trying to prepare for that instead of just getting married, like, oh, the wedding day, which will be fun and great
Right.
whenever it happens. But that's not what I'm trying to prepare for as a single person. And I think maybe that's an error that we have in this culture. We just,
Right.
oh my gosh, I'm gonna prepare for the wedding day. And it's like, but have you prepared to be married? Again, I'm not married, so take this
Right.
with a grain of salt, but like I'm trying to prepare to be in a relationship with someone for a long time.
But you see that all the time. People like you're the focus is getting married, not being in a marriage. Like, okay, could I marry this person? Yeah, sure, you could literally marry anybody, but could you be in a marriage with this
Yeah,
person? If you're going into it with that mindset, can I prepare myself for the day after, in 5 years after, and the super cute, up couple? Like, can you be in that type of relationship with this person, not just can I look my absolute physical best, for this date in 6 months, and then what? You wake up the next day. Can you continue to go on with that? I think that's a banger right there. That's why we have Janessa on here. I would ask just one follow-up question with that of talking more to your parents. What advice would you give, not just your parents specifically, but maybe all parents? So again, you know, those conversations are very helpful to have with someone that is single, especially I think a young adult. Like if you have young adult children, allowing them a space to talk about these things is super helpful. What advice would you give to your parents specifically, or even just parents in general, about cultivating an environment where those conversations can happen?
that's a good question, which is something I'm trying to learn so I can take it into my future home.
Hmm.
Um, there's this couple that I really admire. I grew up, she was my young woman's leader. And I asked her just a few months ago, actually, I said, we were just talking about like how she was different than everybody else because she would mess up stuff. She's like, "Oh, there it is." Like she just didn't care that she'd messed up, or didn't care that she would say an occasional swear word, and like she's still going to the temple, and like da da da. I was like, I just admired that as a girl who was so young, and I don't know, and young women's. And she was like, "Well, I try to teach my kids from little. There's no such thing as perfect. That you're not gonna hit it. There's nothing there, and so we don't aim for perfect. We just aim to improve." And that's in all facets of life. And I was like, that's so cool. So when she, including in her like marriage, and including in how she talks to her kids about relationships, and how she encourages them to date, like you're not going to find perfect and you're not going to be perfect, but if you can come together and work on stuff together, that's so cool. So I don't know. I just like that idea of not, I don't know how I'm going to do that one day,
Hmm.
but just being like, there's no such thing as perfect in this life, and that's okay. And kind of what makes life fun,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
I really like that. So maybe I would tell parents that. And that's not to tell you that my parents did it wrong, because
Right.
I was
No.
great and I love how they did it. Not that they were perfect, but they did appear that way a lot of the time. Um, to my own parents, Gosh, I don't know. I think my parents did a great job. Um, it was just mine and my mom.
Hmm.
We just clashed a lot, probably because we're the same person.
Yeah. Well, I think an underrated part of this whole environment of dating, it's like as hard as it is on you and I day in and day out in the trenches, our parents are seeing us go through that and there's really nothing they can do about it. Like we
Yeah.
talked to our single coworker who has a son our age and she's single too, but to me when I talk to her, it seems like she's more sad talking about her son going through these similar feelings than it is even herself. And so that's why I
Yeah.
ask you that question because I think it is very hard on us going through this, but I think also, I'm sure there's millions of parents listening right now. And so trying to give them like they just feel helpless. And so trying to find a way to empower them as well. How do I support my, young adult child going through this, thing that almost seems out of anybody's control? How do I take a little bit of that control back? So I think your advice on creating an environment of, we're not looking for perfect. We're not looking for you to be perfect. We're looking for, a space of grace. That's kind of something that I think I heard you say. So I appreciated that advice.
Which one last thing is
Mhm.
when parents, this is maybe the advice I would give to my parents with me as a teenager and as a younger, in my earlier 20s, it would be to share your like marriage relationship stories without making them a lesson. Meaning like this is how we did it and that's how it worked for us. You might
Mhm.
do it different, but this is just to give you an example of one way to do it. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Why would that matter to say I'm going to share these stories or these experiences, take from it what you want? How would that have impacted you?
I just felt lectured as a teenager a lot and like just like you have to do it this way or you have to meet this bar in certain things, especially when it came to dating, we had really strict
Mhm.
rules. Um, and I just think it would have been helpful. It would have made me be like, okay, that's one way to do it. I don't have to do it exactly like how they did. But it worked out for them, so maybe I'll try
Right.
it. I think it would have built my relationship with my mom. We're tight now. We're great
Hmm.
now. Don't worry about that. But like, I think it would have built that relationship. And I think if I would have had a better relationship with my mom, I would have had better relationships. Because I had really no one to talk to. I'm very private with my relationship life. Um, and I had to learn quickly due to certain experiences that I need to talk to people
Hmm.
about certain aspects of relationships when you're in the dating setting, not, you know, mom, this is what's going on. Like, what should I do? Or what did you do? Or what would you do in this situation? I would take it on by myself, which is my personality, which
Hmm.
we worked on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just would feel less like finger wagging and more like, here's a table of options.
Yeah.
So,
No, I did an entire paper on it last semester, the implications of parental relationships on how young adults then proceed to form relationships in the future. It is insane how big of an impact it has. So if I'm a
mhm.
young adult listening, and again, that sometimes it's not in your control, but try and make sure your parental relationships are in as good of a place as you can. If not, start to take care of the things that you need to so you can be secure in that. But then also as a parent, knowing that you play a responsibility in that too of I need to create a healthy relationship with my son or daughter so that they know what to look for. They know what a secure relationship is. They know what secure love looks like so that that's not, getting confused and things like that. So I love that. Well, Janessa, thank you so much for giving this massive audience about an hour of your time. I
Yeah.
think that some of the things you shared are things that not only people need to hear, but again, like I said, to me, these a big reason why I'm doing this is because I feel like I need it. I think a lot of these conversations are very helpful for me. And I view you as somebody when we have these kind of conversations, very helpful for me. It's healing for me. And if anybody wants to join in on the healing, that's great. But for me, it's very helpful. And I think that you're just incredible. And I hope and pray that one day we'll just be in, hopefully like 5 years. We'll give it 5 years. We got like five kids each in a barbecue, and Aunt Demi's going crazy. Like I pray, that we can get out of this sooner than later. But I'm grateful to be going through it with people like you. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and advice and wisdom.
Yeah, happy to do it. These are good conversations.
Sweet. For those of you that haven't yet, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Instagram, on TikTok. If you know somebody that's struggling with dating, please have them reach out. A little part of this is to build a community to try and, give us more. Like Janessa was saying, it's really hard to even just meet people to build these type of communities. I think that would be great if we could build that type of community. So follow us, subscribe to us. Any of the podcast platforms you have will be on there, and we're excited to be able to get this started. So here's the catchphrase. We're gonna try it out and see how it works. And if it's bad, I'll just record something after this and do it better. But this has been the comeback. I don't even know the name of my freaking show yet. I haven't done this enough. This has been the relationship comeback, where we're learning to become the one so we can attract the one. We'll see y'all next time.